So anyway, I'll just start with it seems that this, I guess it's bipolarity, stuff coming up or whatever,
Right.
and so when I was up visiting cat sitting this weekend and I was doing these great meditations. So what came to me yesterday was this. I was in like this so what came to me first, the first day I was there, had to do, well, not actually before I even left, because this was last week when everything started to clear up. It was like seeing because it was I remember what and who what and who I came here to be. I fully am worthy to remember how to allow myself to fully be 100% of what and who that is, right? Or whatever that is, right? Whatever that whole thing is. So when I did that, it was so powerful because it was so simple, and I could feel that core power of that seed of remembrance, being a seed of remembrance, of helping others remember, right? Which makes well, of course we knew this, right? And it's not just me, it's many of us, because it's all that connection that we came in here to, embody. So sitting in that though, and I just have allowed myself to day after day do that again and again in meditation. So yesterday was really interesting because I saw myself as I saw myself in that embodiment, for lack of a better word. And I went into a line of people, right? And they were all going through this door in the ground that was like a cosmic door kind of thing, right? And it came up in my turn, and I said, yeah, hold on a second. I don't need to do this way, even though I wasn't really conscious of what I was doing. And then I realized, so there's been that whole something that I've never really looked at, that I'm still gonna sort of sit and look at, having to do with, being a walk in, walk along, from the early age.
Right.
That I have refused, or we have refused, or not refused, but chosen to stay to become assimilated, versus one really just taking over and the other one walking out, right?
Okay.
So that other part of me, when I was out there, I saw it as two different sort of consciousnesses, right? Mm-hmm. Was what I was considering early on, yeah, I don't know how we're going to post this one. This will be interesting because there's a lot of backstory in this that you and I already know about. But the child of Lucifer, right? The child of separation, right? With the understanding of Lucifer being the one who to explore the separation to this depth, right? Yeah. And then the other part being the seed of remembrance and coming back to unity of the I guess the universal mother, as we call it. We want to call it Sophia, whatever we want to call it. That. See, look, you're already yawning.
I'm there.
And it was this full integration of saying, no, we can do this better as one together instead of one or the other, right? And so my understanding when I was out there was many were choosing to go one way or the other. Right. And that was like the doorway. And it was like, no, I choose to be both. Because for some reason, both was more powerful. Well, of course, both was more powerful because it was more complete, right?
It's all instead of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in sitting with that decision that I made out there that I wasn't even aware that I had to make, it's felt so powerful. So powerful. And it's interesting that this whole perception of, the integration of the dark and the light is becoming, coming up for people, whether it's in sickness and there's resistance and friction in the body, or, like my response in that email, that with that interchange with Jen was, I'm really glad that I didn't have to get a stomach virus.
Yeah.
To look at that. But,
well, because last night when I was wide awake for couple of hours, I was laying there and I was like, you know, I know this is an illusion. Why am I allowing this? Why am I allowing this screaming headache? Why am I allowing this, this nausea? Why am I allowing any of this? I know better. I can do different. Why am I choosing this? And with the headache screaming so loud, it was hard to step out of that.
Right.
So I don't really know how to describe what I did, but it was almost like there were two parts of me and they were arguing. Like one is like, no, I'm going to do this. And the other one's like, but you don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was making the headache worse. So what I did is it's almost like I had to go to a level of letting go
Mm-hmm.
of the, for lack of a better word, last night came to me, of the humanity, the physicality.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, once I got to the point where it was like just letting a wave come through and take away all the structure. And in doing that, it was like I almost blended the two.
Right.
So I'm wondering.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
It is. And I mean, it was like I would get through my head and it would be like, but my eyes still feel really tense. So I would go back and I would do that again. And it was like I would do the wave and, top down, side to side, then diagonal. And it felt amazing, almost like going to the molecular level.
Nice.
And I did that, and I ended up doing it for my whole body. And I got through, why am I having these blocks in my, liver gallbladder? What anger am I not expressing? What anger am I denying?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, everybody thinks anger is bad. And, even though you say, it's all right, I can handle this, I can manage, you're still denying the anger that you experience from it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you experience it doesn't mean it has to define you. And it's like, so why am I still doing that? It was like going through that whole thing, and it felt very, like bathing.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah, there's no real word for it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there really isn't. And it was like, I was like, well,
it was a huge sense of relief for me, like to allow that to happen. Like not only a sense of relief, but a sense of empowerment, like huge empowerment. Yeah.
Well, and it was like, I felt like I was wearing this shroud, and it was so heavy and tiring. And it's like, you know what? If I have to continue wearing this, I'm just done. It's just, I have attained a certain level of understanding, and I don't feel that I have to pretend anymore. And that's what that shroud felt like.
Nice.
It was that level of
having to pretend. Yeah.
Yeah, burden. It was like a burden. And I was thinking of God, and I don't know where this came from. Where those that have ascended come back, like for instance, when Jesus came back or came into the physical form, how hard that was to come into this density. And that occurred to me last night. It's like, I'm done pretending like I have to be kept at this density.
Right. Right. But it's almost like the fluidity to the density, right? So it's like there's that balance of,
which to me is what you were talking about, the separation and the wholeness. It's like, no, I'm not going to choose, because I have been choosing and it's not working anymore.
Yeah. And that was my whole thing, is I see people just like jumping through. I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel right to me anymore. Like it was like, you know, this is the way to go. And, even out there, I was like, checking, because there was like a little tiny like shred of doubt, and it was like, no, this is the way to go.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I feel like I went through every organ and every nitpick I've had, like, you know, the pineal, my vision, my teeth, you know, all the things that about my physicality, it's like, okay, to me that's something I need to pay extra attention to, is to work through these things and make sure that it is balanced. And
maybe that ties into, remember we were talking about this itch in the back of my head. I'm going to use a feather here. It's play feather for the cat. Remember we were talking about last week. I don't know if we were doing it on live on the recording here, but the what's going on with so many of us who are, and it's funny, the decision of like shifting physicality in some way, whether it's, you know, having some minor like plastic surgery work done, or, you know, doing the stomach stapling, or doing this or doing that. And it's funny because the decisions seem to be coming from a different place. Like the decisions are not coming from this place of lack so much as it is more of a place of I'm ready to be, and, you know, like, well, see, you even say better is still lack, meaning that but it's like I'm ready to change this to be exactly what I want it to be, and this is the easiest way, fastest way to do it, you know, like whatever.
right.
And it doesn't preclude them doing the work underneath to, you know, be in a place of acceptance for themselves, because you're still, even if, no matter what you do, if you still don't accept yourself, you're still not going to be happy with what you see, right?
Right.
But it's almost like that's a representative of coming to that place of acceptance of the physicality, to say, okay, you know, I'm here. You know, it's like, I'm here. I know what these messages that I created were, and I know I can change this, but I can also change this way too, and just go with, I can just be a part of it as well as not be a part of it, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's a different level of detachment.
Yeah.
It's almost like participatory detachment.
So, yeah.
That was last week, I think.
Yeah. So that's really powerful, like, in itself. And I know we've in the past, we've done this whole integration, but it's almost like this is a completely different level.
Oh, well, and it's almost like it's integrating different things.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like these core pieces that have been held in separation, right?
It's like, it's it's redefining separation.
Right. In an evolved kind of way, even though we don't really know what that looks like yet, right? Or we don't remember what that looks like.
Moving the judgment of separation, because we've always felt that was, well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but that it is the least desirable.
Right.
And that's the cause of all the problems, mm-hmm. or the suffering or struggle or unhappiness. Well, it's because we're in separation. And it's like, yeah, I mean,
there's not words. We don't have quite words to describe any of this. This is another week of this.
Right.
Because it's sort of like this idea of, you know, I want to say well, and it goes back to the simplicity, for lack of more holographic language, right? It's really, in the most simplest forms, it is that integration. It is the embracing of the dark to recognize that it's part of the whole, and that it has served a useful purpose in all of this, because it's really just separation, right? It's just the level of separation we've gone to and what we've created to create, you know, it's like, wow, this is interesting. We haven't come to this topic in a long time, but it's like the colors and the, you know, the rainbow and depth, perception and shadows. You know, it's like things look more vibrant when you have contrast and separation, right?
Right.
And so without the darkness, that wouldn't exist.
Right.
You know, and so there's a level of gratitude to have for ourselves for having created that, right? And coming to this place of not discarding it, but embracing it to allow it to be a part of the whole without judging it right now. And we've said this, and like I said, it doesn't even sound like, it sounds so flat. It sounds so very 2D when I say it, because it's not even close to what it means from how I've seen it, this past week.
Right.
So,
well, and so many people enjoy the trauma drama of the separation, all while judging it as the darkness.
Right.
So it's that push pull that almost holds them where they are.
Yeah, and it's funny, that just ties into, there's a couple of people we were that I've been having discussions with or whatever, and I think we talked about this last week too, but they're having some issues with, well, it turns out, well, they're having some issues that sort of makes them come across as a little bit paranoid and delusional or whatever, right? Which, that's all fear-based, right? So it's just trying to get through to the ego, to pass the ego, to calm that and see the bigger picture. However, what's turning out on a couple of situations, or funny in discussion, it's been like pharmaceuticals, right?
Right.
Sort of enhance that, not help, but enhance that experience, right? And it was funny because I was like also looking at somebody else, like this one person, and then somebody else was telling me about some other person, and then I remembered there's another, and then it's funny that there's another person I know who went through this period of delusion, like it was really paranoid, and she had been really spiritual and following the spiritual path, but she had tried controlling it, and she had this really deep belief that she could only be the light, that there could be nothing, that like that, like she had to be an angel and she couldn't be anything else, because according to her, angels couldn't have any darkness either, and I was like, but we all are angels, but she couldn't accept any, and so she tried to control it, and then her husband started having mental issues that came from like an early career, and then he went off like the deep end, and then her body started to come down. She started having the autoimmune disorders, which is the body fighting itself, or the spirit fighting the body.
Right.
And then she started having all this stuff going on. Well, I kept on saying to her, because and it was getting worse and worse. Like she was convinced somebody was out to get her, that this, and they were hacking, and she, in the deep web, and all this kind of stuff. And I asked her the simple question once: so why would you be that much of an interest that would, like somebody would take that much time?
Right.
I don't know, but just to ruin my life, just because. And I was like, but like. And so what happened was, it turned out she had been on some kind of medication, and I can't remember if it was a contraindication with another one, but then some doctor she had gone to had given her like way too high a dose on this one particular medication, which apparently the side effect of the higher dose, this is paranoia and delusions and neuroses and stuff like that. And the funny thing was, when she was first going through all this stuff, she asked me what I was getting about this. And I said to her, I don't feel like it's what you think it is. I feel like, and I had said, you might want to just, and I said, of course it's a consciousness, but you might want to look at your medicines, right? Which was funny that I had said that early on, and I was like, and I said to her, because they all have a consciousness too.
Right.
Drugs do, all, whether they're from the earth or created in a lab. And so, and I remember us, and it turned out to be that, and when they lowered her dose, the stuff, it went away, right? Well, it was interesting that I saw over the weekend a post of that, this has started again, this person's hacking into, and I was like, oh, interesting, right? Because she's trying to deny this whole spiritual,
right.
It's denying what she wouldn't look at when she was allowing it, which was that she has a dark side to her as well as the light, which really is fundamental. So it works into the whole picture, right? It's all part of the same thing. It's this whether your body's fighting it physically, like in terms of an illness, like in a flu, or if it's a drug,
Right.
or it's it's just this something that we consider dark and separate and don't want to look at in the mirror and accept it as our own kind of thing. Oh, look, my phone dinged. That means that was obviously a good point.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off my sound. And it's not, like I said, and even talking about it diminishes what it means because it's so flat sounding in the words, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, the experience I had was so powerful and empowering of saying, oh, look at this. Because when we let it all come together, there's no energy in keeping it apart anymore, right? And it just becomes easy.
Right.
Look, you have a dog wagging, you have Buster wagging his tail, so obviously he must agree.
Yeah. I think he likes what we're talking about.
Well, you have the black and white dog yourself.
Yeah, I have a black dog with black spots and a black dog with white spots.
And funny that all weekend I was cat sitting to tuxedo cats, so they're all black and white, which did not, it was funny, it did not like go unnoticed by me going, isn't that funny that the two cats are both like the yin yang cats in black and white? So
yeah.
So it's not, yeah, and it's almost like this other level entirely of not just, I wouldn't even call it allowing the integration of the dark and light, but just allowing integration, right? Allowing wholeness.
Right.
Because in allowing wholeness truly is to allow all of that.
And allowing the wholeness within the human form, which is what I found so powerful. Because it's again, you don't have to choose. I don't have to choose that if I want to embrace the wholeness that I release this. That it's not either or, it's all.
And you can also choose to not feel crappy because of it. It can just be what it is, right?
Right. And it was funny because I would feel amazing and then my mind would want to think about it. And it was like, I could feel the symptoms slip back in and I was like, nope. I'm not choosing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something important about the fluidity of that choice because it actually frees us to do even more is what I understand.
Well, I mean, it just releases the burden of all that. And you know what comes to me is all that watching and keeping.
Yeah. Back to the watchers and keepers. Yep.
That's right. It's like those roles have evolved into the letting and the being instead of watching and keeping. But it's like my physical body, when I did that combination, it was a sense of letting go that I don't think I've ever experienced in the body, even in meditation. It was that being a piece of everything and understanding the consciousness of everything all at the same time. It was really, really nice.
Yeah. Is that somebody drinking water behind you?
Yeah, he's Buster's drinking. No one will play with him this morning, so he's a little bit frustrated.
Aww. Yeah, so I guess what we'll do then is all that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even think.
Nothing written down.
I don't either. In fact, it's really funny as I realized I didn't even take my notebook and my journal are still in my bag from this weekend. I'm like, so I didn't get to meditate before we started this morning. But I already have it written down, that part, because I had written about it in my journal yesterday from my meditation. So more of that. Because it does integrate with we cannot see fully, I guess we can, the way we best, I'm going to say not, instead of that, the way we can best see what or who we came here to be, right, is to the best way for us to be able to see it clearly is to allow that integration. That would make so much sense. Because if we only want to look at this part of it, this part of it because it feels better or it feels more, blah, blah, blah. Because, I always say, like, what if, it's like what I tell people is like, what if you came here to be Hitler? Like, that doesn't make it wrong, or it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just is, right? And we all want to be the savior to all souls, but what if the savior to all souls would be to be Hitler?
Right.
Because it's, coming to that place of pushing people, and that's so many people have equated similar the political circumstances, to this, and I'm like, but what a better individual, like what a great individual to trigger other people to see what depths of what they have within themselves, right? To get their head out of the sand, right? To make us uncomfortable so that we do something about it, and to also make others step up around, depending on the institution of the politics, and to do something about it without needing, without needing that or feeling like that's the be all end all kind of thing.
Right.
It's the same difference.
Well, and what if nobody signed up for the job of being Trump or being Hitler or being,
or whoever, right? I know.
Whomever, yeah.
The thing is that if the message needs to be that loud because we've been ignoring it for so long, and we
didn't hear the whispers.
That's our choice. And I make people uncomfortable when I say that. I've had people walk out of a room when I say that, going, okay, whether or not you chose to vote for the individual or whatever, we still chose because we're here.
Right.
And said, at this point, this is what is to happen if we haven't gotten the message and started changing the direction yet. Does it make us warm and fuzzy? Mostly not. Many of us not.
Right.
But that was the purpose, because that's the ego wanting to be.
It doesn't happen from a place of warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. Well, that's just how it happens in this separation-based, dense, existence, this particular dimension. Or set of dimensions. So if we accept, so here's the thing, because the mind, it's like the thing to put on the table here is to not let the mind try to get in the middle of this and just let it go, because the mind wants to start pulling, making holes out of it, right? And judging.
And under the guise of, well, I just need to understand this, which means I just need to put it in its appropriate boxes so I know what to do with it.
Right.
Which is.
That's when
the headache comes back.
And when we sell ourselves short over and over, right? But the thing is, what many don't recognize, because right away when I say something like that, like, what if you came here to be Hitler? What if you came here to be this, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that anybody has. What I'm saying is, if we come into this acceptance of the whole, right, then there's no need. Actually, what will happen is it ends up being that there's no need to have somebody like Hitler, because we have that self-awareness within ourselves.
Right.
That's the connection so many aren't making yet.
Right.
All we need to, and that, what does it come down to? All we need to do is remember how to unconditionally love ourselves, and unconditional means all of it.
Right. Which is, when I would come last night and doing what I did with the integration of everything, was when I would come to places that were resistant, it was like, it's perfect just the way it is. And it's the integration of everything. It's the integration of how it is, how you want it to be, all of it.
And I think the ego gets a little quivery about all this because of the fact that when we do come into full acceptance of the whole, then we lose identity and separation, right? Because it's sort of like that, the way like it's the counterintuitive or the not counterintuitive, counter logical, right? To what the mind wants to think is, because the ego goes, oh, no, this will kill me, right? This is going to kill me because I'm here to explore separation and identity and, and whatever. And it's like, well, okay, but, and not but, and
right.
You're also part of the whole. It's a baby step. It's a big baby
Yeah,
step.
but it's a baby step off a cliff.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So there's that feels really core and important. So, all right. I say we just go do all that, whatever's be done. So we can allow with ease and flow and incorporate and step into this wholeness in this way, in this acceptance of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm already out there.
Yeah, me too. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
I had some physical sensations, and I was like, you know what? There is no resistance here. And it was like just gone, but I was just like, oh my God, still?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of layers of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because I saw in the beginning you and I were standing looking at a canvas, right? But the canvas was like, I don't know, it was made out of boxes, right? And the boxes were all different colors. And it's like, well, what if we like our boxes, right?
I can arrange them like this, and I
Yeah.
can.
Well, yeah. And they were, and it was like, okay, so we can step back. And then it's like, but then when we step back and we can see the whole thing without like staying just in one box or whatever, we can reach into this box and take from this box, and allow that picture to come together and then create another dimension of that picture, right? All together. So it's like, oh, that's fun. That's fun art. And then we got on this little, like, what are these kid train things that the kids can sit on? Like, we get on this train, kid train thing.
Right.
And we go through some doorway. And I can't remember the rest now. But there was a lot of stuff going on in terms of that. What the heck now? Isn't that funny? As I lost it already. I did have physical sensations in my body. It was almost like there were, like, something was just like, it was almost like somebody, like I was sweeping myself out from the inside. It was like, yeah, like all of a sudden I had this like big whoosh go through my body, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And, I felt a couple of those. And I got this, well, okay, you don't have to pay attention to the details of that. You can just let that go, right? And I heard that clearly, and I was like, okay.
I heard so much about there are no more details. And it was just like, oh, thank God. I'm so over the details.
And then it was, what was the end part? Because we sort of tied it up in a really nice little bow at the end. I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, we got it energetically. It doesn't matter. So that was fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Morning. And yeah. So everybody sit on that one. And we will see y'all next week for whatever comes up next. See how it all sits, right?
Yes.
Let me see if I get my mouse to work every week. There it is. Okay. All righty.